starting off with a gentle floor practice. We are going to start off in child's pose. So if you want to grab a blanket or a pillow, we're going to turn to face that blanket or pillow and allow the knees to come out as wide as the edges of the yoga mat, setting your hips back down onto your heels, settling in before you bring your right ear down onto your blanket or your pillow, and just letting the forearms melt into the floor, letting the hips soften. Begin to deepen your breath, breathing in completely through the nose, filling up the lungs. And then exhale completely, emptying out the lungs. Finding about 10 breaths here, easing into this pose, settling in, letting go, letting tension melt away in the jaw, the neck, the shoulders. Deepening your inhales and elongating your exhales. Creating space every time you exhale and taking up that space every time you inhale. On your next exhale, gently pick up the head and rotate it to the other side, allowing that left ear to relax down on your blanket or pillow, completely letting go. Continue breathing deeply in through the nose and exhale through the mouth. Continue to let tension melt away in the jaw, the neck, shoulders, and the hips, the pelvic floor, and the low back. On your next exhale, turning the head so that the forehead comes down onto your pillow or blanket, and just letting the back of the neck elongate as you settle here for a moment, breathing into that space behind the neck. And imagine completely letting go around the pelvic area, the low back, the hips. On your next exhale, pressing into the fingertips, begin to peel your forehead up off of your blanket and just sit up for a moment if this is comfortable on your knees. Taking a gentle wrist warm up. We're just making little circles with fists going in one direction, and then alternate your direction. Taking both hands in prayer position right in front of the chest, we're pulling the hands down and lifting the elbows out to the side. Okay, so we're just kind of stretching those forearms for a moment. Inhale. Exhale, release, taking the backs of the hands to touch now. So now the tops of the hands are pressing together and kind of lifting up the hands and dropping the elbows down. Stretching out the tops of the forearms. On your next exhale, release the hands. You can move your pillow or blanket off to the side, and we'll work our way up into tabletop. Spreading those fingertips out nice and wide, rooting the hands down into the ground, stacking shoulders over wrists, hips over knees. Begin to rock the hips back to the heels, and then press back up to tabletop. And we'll take this about 5 to 10 times, just working your breath to your movement, inhaling on the way back and exhaling as you come up. You can go as slow or as quickly as feels good, but whatever you choose, trying to move deliberately, intentionally, and not just power through. On your next exhale, go ahead and meet me back in tabletop. We're going to step the left foot out to the side. So keeping the foot flat, the toe pointed forward, and then take a peek down at your knee and try to stack the hip over the knee. Begin to rock back and forth. If you level off your pelvis, you'll notice that you get more of a stretch in that inner thigh muscle. So trying to find that gently, but not forcing it or pushing through. And we're going about 8 to 10 times on this side, moving with intention. And then release, taking that knee underneath the hip and off to the other side. Right leg steps out, foot is flat and toe points forward, begin rocking back and forth. stacking the hip over the knee, trying to square off both hips. And 10. Release and roll it up onto the knees. I'm just turning to face you. You can stay in that same position, but we'll step your left foot out to the side. Coming out at an angle, we're going to glide that knee over the ankle and back. So we can take hands to hips, trying to keep both hips facing forward as you shift your weight over to the side. And where I feel the stretch is kind of in the hip area. So if it's pinching or feeling uncomfortable, you can play around with moving the foot forward or backward a little more, whatever feels good. So again, we're not pushing through any discomfort. And then we'll take the other side. I'm going to turn to face the other direction so you can see how far out my foot is. So stepping the right foot off to the side, turning that toe out slightly, and the foot is placed a little in front of the body. Begin to shift that knee over the ankle and back, keeping both hips and shoulders pointed forward. So we're taking this about 8 to 10 times. 8, 9, and 10. Releasing that knee underneath the hip, coming back onto the hands for tabletop. Let's walk both fingers forward, spreading out the fingertips, index finger points up toward the top of your yoga mat. We'll tuck both toes, hover the knees, and send the hips up and back into downward facing dog. Knees can be bent here. We want the chest to really drop down so that we're getting that nice long line throughout the spine. Heels do not need to touch the ground here. Take a couple of deep breaths. You can try to pedal out the heels, alternating right and left. First downward facing dog of the day. Don't hold yourself to too many expectations. And then find a moment of stillness. Maybe you can straighten out the knees a little more, but again, not compromising that integrity in the spine. Take your gaze forward. We're going to draw the belly button into the spine, lifting the hips up. And let's step your right foot about halfway. Okay, hands are still on the ground. Lower that back knee to the ground. Untuck the toe and then come on up. Scooch that foot forward so that we can shift the hips forward, coming into a lunge. So taking your yoga block to the inside of the arch of the foot. We're going to tuck that back toe and hover the knee to come into a runner's lunge. So with your yoga blocks, you can come up onto the tall sides and loop the shoulders down and back, peeling the chest up and forward. Taking a moment here, straightening that back knee, squaring off the hips. Find your breath. And then exhale, release that knee to the ground, untucking the toe, and stepping that foot back behind you. Other side. Step your left foot forward, and we'll heel toe, scooching that foot up to the top of your mat. Let's tuck that back toe and hover the knee. Okay, so in this alignment, we're trying to get the knee over the ankle. Okay, so not too far back here, pressing the knee forward, but we'll slide that foot forward so that we can be here comfortably. Coming up onto the tall sides of your yoga block, lifting the back knee, squeezing that back glute, square off your hips. Loop the shoulders down and back to peel the chest up off of the floor. Again, hands are on yoga blocks supporting you. Find your breath. And then exhale, release, taking that knee to the ground, untucking the toe, and sweeping your leg back and around to tabletop. Go ahead and move your yoga blocks off to the side for a moment, and we'll come down onto our backs. Okay. Settling in here for a moment, we want to walk the heels up toward our seat. Take your yoga block and place it between the knees so that we can get some good alignment here. So we want the ankles, knees, and hips to be aligned with each other. You're going to press down into the hands as you send the hips up toward the ceiling. So the yoga block is there, either literally or figuratively, so that we don't let the knees flare out too much. In your case, we want to arch the back a little bit here in bridge pose, and just take a moment here to breathe, holding, pressing the hips up, really squeezing those glutes, building strength, building heat, and then exhale, release everything down. Let's take that 2 more times. Inhale, lift up and squeeze. Find your breath. Relax the shoulders, relax the jaw. And then exhale, release. And then let's take that 1 more time. Inhale, lift those hips up, squeeze your block, and breathe. Exhale, release the hips to the ground. And you're welcome to pause the video and take bridge pose as many times as you would like, just to get a little more strengthening aspect. Otherwise, you can take your block if you were using that and move it off to the side. And go ahead and extend the right leg out long, the left leg out long. Turn the palms up to the ceiling. And just allow the shoulders to melt into the ground below you. Letting the heels be heavy with the floor. Letting the backs of the hands feel grounded. Gently tuck the chin in to create some length throughout the back of the neck. Close the eyes if they aren't already. And release tension in the forehead, the eyes, the jaw. Relax the shoulders down and away from the ears. Scanning down the body toward the abdomen, the low back, the hips, and the pelvic floor. And try to relax, let go, ease tension that doesn't need to be there right now. Letting those legs be heavy into the floor. And take a couple of moments here to focus on you and your breath. Feeling that inhale, breathing in love. And exhale, breathing out love. Trying to soften into the floor a little more every time you exhale and let go. And go of anything that isn't serving you at this very moment. And when you feel ready, you can begin to make small movements with the toes and the fingers, bending both knees and rolling over onto one side, trying to keep the eyes closed. Press your way up into a seated position, moving with intention, moving with ease. Rooting the sits bones down into the ground, growing tall through the crown of the head. Take both hands to heart center. Take a moment to show yourself some gratitude for showing up on your mat today, for carving out this time for yourself. And may you have peace in your thoughts, in your words, in your heart. Namaste.